Hey, man.
Howdy, we're live. By the way, I
Awesome.
accidentally went live first, but anyway, once my camera switches over to your camera, it won't have two cameras on myself, which would be fantastic. But anyway, welcome everyone to the stream. I fumbled it at the start as per usual, but that's okay. Today we're talking with 1njection, who's going to talk about all sorts of good stuff. It's going to be a fun stream. If you guys have any questions, please do drop them in the chat and I'll go through them at the end of the stream. If the music's too loud and you can't hear me or 1njection, let me know and I'll do what I can to fix it out. So welcome, 1njection. How you doing?
Good, man. I'm glad to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah. This should be a fun one. For those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Dan Borges. I'm 1njection on Twitter. I've been writing a cybersecurity blog for somewhere between 12 and 15 years now.
Nice.
Some of the big things I do in the community is every year I play in CCDC, which is the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. And then just in the last 5 years, we've started hosting our own competition called CPTC, which is the Collegiate Pen Testing Competition. And that's a global competition.
Right. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty intense. Yeah, right. And what sort of led you into, I guess, doing these CTFs and what's, I guess, apart from your blog that you're talking about, what do you do in your day-to-day life, for work or whichever?
Yeah, so for work, I'm right now I'm an incident responder. I lead a detection team at a small startup. The last I'm going to say they're startups, but the last several years I've worked for startups, but I don't even know if you could call them startups. Last company I worked for was CrowdStrike, doing internal red teaming, and then before that was Uber, which like very large startups in my opinion. This
Yeah,
is a
I
much
think they
smaller
still
startup.
call themselves startups, so I mean, they like that vibe, I
Yeah,
guess. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
they're huge corporations though, both of them.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
obviously CrowdStrike's smaller, but Uber's massive.
yeah, yeah. That's not a small company. Definitely not starting out anymore. But I think they still have that like entrepreneur vibe. Everything's new and exciting type thing that startups have. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've never worked at Uber, so I'm not too sure. But
No,
yeah,
you're
I
right.
assume so.
It's very much in the culture, and the culture at these places are all crazy. I feel like it's just cover for like let's move fast and I don't want to. I guess do things like I'm going to say the word sloppy, but that's not really what I mean. Like there's
Yeah.
just like fast and almost like cut corners to get the job done today, and then go back and fix it later.
I mean, that's not even that strange for like large enterprises, to be honest. They do that as well. Just the sprints are a little bit less insane, I would say, but less
Yeah.
crazy deadlines. But still, it makes for an interesting work environment, no doubt. Um, so yeah, okay, so that's cool. So incident response and lots of CTF stuff. Tell us a bit about the CTFs that you've been participating in lately.
Yeah. So I guess the way I got started in competitions is back in school. I did a computer science major, and actually I did a few cybersecurity CTFs there. One of them that I really enjoyed and had a big impact on me was called the USCC, which is the United States Cyber Challenge,
Yeah.
and that was really cool because like it started with an online CTF, and then when you completed that, they sent you to like basically like a mini SANS for a week. So you went to like a week-long boot camp where they had SANS instructors, but they did like 5 1-day courses instead of like 1 5-day course.
That's pretty cool.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So kind of yeah,
and I
basically
got,
boot camp.
yeah. It was really condensed. You know what I mean? Like you do basically like the first 2 days of a malware dev class in like or like a malware reverse engineering class in like 1 day. So it was very condensed.
Jeez.
But
Okay. Yeah.
but I got a lot of good takeaways from that. Like I got to meet a lot of people in the industry, people that I still work with. Uh, and you also like when you go to those physical events, I feel like you learn something a little more than just the CTFs. Like you learn like kind of networking and socializing and just like I don't know, being around your peers. So
Networking.
that
Yeah.
had a yeah.
Yeah.
So that had a big impact on me, and I think that's what once I started the CCDC stuff, like I enjoyed it so much because there was still that aspect of it. Like CCDC, at least at the finals, it's like basically 2 to 3 intense days of attack defense competition.
Right.
So we don't really see the students too much, but at the end, it is actually cool because like we all meet at the bar and we all sit there and talk about, all of the techniques that we did, and like it's really cool in that
That's
sense.
the
And then
best
like
part of a CTF, I reckon. Is I mean, there's the bit where you're like heads down trying to get stuff done, but then there's the cool down period afterwards where you're like, oh, okay, breathe. What happened? What happened, guys? And that's for me.
no,
That's
you're
my
right.
favorite part, to be honest.
That
But
really is the best part. And so like I guess I also did a CTF team on CTF time for probably like a year and a half, and for a full year we went really hard on it. Like every weekend we were playing CTFs. We were trying to be in the top
damn.
100 on CTF time. We did pretty well. But it was just so much like it was kind of like it burnt me out a little bit. It was a lot of competition,
Yeah.
and there was no debrief at the end. There was no hanging out
Yeah.
with people at the bar. It was just like working for
Was the team
16
like
hours on your weekend.
everyone remote, or everyone was like different places, or?
We were local. We were in the Bay Area at the time, so we'd meet up like in the San Francisco area, and we'd meet up at this place called Hacker Dojo in Mountain View, and that was really cool. But
Sounds cool.
it was it was like very academic focused, like, and even then because the CTFs were all live, we would like stop playing like on Saturday or Sunday. The competition wouldn't be over for another 6 hours, so we didn't even do like a debrief among ourselves. Like we just got together, played, and went home.
Yeah, right. So I have to ask, what's your favorite CTF then that you've ever done? Because it sounds like you did a lot in that 1 year CTF crackdown extravaganza.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like a pretty extreme year of hacking all sorts of stuff. So yeah, what was your favorite CTF?
yeah. At the time, they still did this big schmoocon CTF called I'm not 100% sure of like the abstract name, but the name the last few years was like Pony Island, and it was like a whole MMO game where you would join the game and you would hack your game client to like achieve different results in the game. But it was really cool. It was like
Oh damn, that
a
is
full
cool.
world.
I think I heard
Yeah,
about this somewhere. I think someone told me and was like, "Would you be interested?" I'm like, "I don't think I'm good enough for this, to be honest." Um,
it's
so
it's still
yeah.
online.
Oh,
Their last year, I think they released a Game Boy Advance game, and I remember it now. It was Ghost in the Shellcode is the name of their CTF, and the last few years they did this thing called like Pony Island, and it was super cool. It was really neat.
yeah, that does sound pretty freaking awesome, I have to say. Um, okay, so let's talk a bit more about incident response. What's I guess as an incident responder, what's like your day to day like from morning until when you go home? What's the day in the life of an incident responder?
Okay,
Yeah,
this is gonna be a
long
little tongue in
question.
cheek.
Yeah.
Um, so so leading the incident response effort, also leading the detection engineering team. It's like it's all one team.
Yeah.
So in the morning, I wake up and I just go through all of my detection alerts, like just basic system review, before my stand up. And my whole idea here is like, if there's anything that is burning, I want to kind of get
Put the
eyes on
fire
it
out.
and then bubble it up to the team. Yeah, but before our like meeting for the day. Hopefully, most days that's nothing. So go through the day, kind of, machines could be compromised, but if it's like a small scale thing and it's not like a large like attack or coordinated effort, then just remediate the machine, quarantine it, have IT pick it up, whatever.
Yeah.
um After that, like, I really spend the bulk of my day on like detection engineering. So right now it's building log pipelines, it's finding different log sources that we want to get into our sim. It's checking the health of those pipelines. It's like indexing my different logs and then writing rules on those log sources so I can start to detect like new stuff that I care about. Uh, right now, my job, like that's the majority of my job. And normally, if I was like, like at a company that was very well established and deep into this, it would mostly be like rule review and curation and going through that stuff. But right now, I'm still like setting up a lot of log pipelines. Still getting a lot of my log sources. So that's very fun and challenging. And like I have like a big spreadsheet of all the logs I want to target and prioritize, and then the different rules, like the detections that I want from all these different log sources.
Yeah.
So that's really fun, and it's fun to see those trigger. And then inevitably, at some point during the day, somebody will report something, or somebody will call us where like something's been exposed. Um, and it can vary, but it's almost always surprising. It's always like, oh, we have that system,
Shit.
or
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not collecting that log source. Like,
Oh my god.
why did this strange thing, like, it's always like some one-off weird thing. No, don't get me wrong, like there's definitely like coordinated campaigns and things we've seen over time, and we've like ranked these things as like either priorities or lower threats,
Yeah.
depending on like their impact or what they're after. So there is stuff that I'm like very familiar with when it resurfaces, and we've had like long-term operations and engagements around that. And I have some really good stories about that, actually. I can't talk about the stuff I'm doing now, but at Uber in the past, I built this like huge email IDS system in Lambda functions, all in AWS. It's really cool. Like, took apart all these emails, and at some point, because we were doing all this like large scale phishing detection, we started hearing of these phishing campaigns that were targeting the drivers of Uber. And it would basically be these people, and they would contact the drivers. They would first request a ride, they'd get the ride matched up with the driver, and then they would instantly call the driver and say, hey, we're from Uber Official, and you've won some kind of raffle or something, and we need you to go to this website and log in. Yeah, totally bogus. So they'd go to the website and be like uberbonus.com, and they'd log in, and it'd be phishing, and they'd steal their credentials, and then they'd log into the driver's account and cash them out right away and take all their money.
Wow, that's
yeah
pretty smart. As far as a phishing campaign goes, that's not a bad one. That's pretty cool. I'm
it
terrible,
worked, man.
But cool. Yeah.
It absolutely worked. These guys made tons of money. And it's interesting too, because when you're doing like corporate cybersecurity, obviously your job is to protect the customers, but your real job is to protect the company, right? So like this kind of phishing campaign gets deprioritized, like, because it's the drivers being defrauded. It's not like the corporation themselves. At first, the corporation didn't even want to like really cover the costs. They were like, oh, well, that's your fault. Like if somebody logs into your bank, right? But they were logging into our app. So we pushed really hard internally to like reimburse these people, and then also like start tracking the losses of this campaign, because it was getting deprioritized, because people didn't see it as a big threat to like the business itself. So we started tracking this campaign, and over the course of a few months, like we saw them go from like $0 to $40,000, like really quickly. Like
whoa,
they stole a ton of money. Yeah.
Jesus, they weren't messing about.
Yeah, so we put together this big report. We tried to get the FBI involved. The FBI is like $40,000. That's nothing, guys.
Yeah,
they
like
didn't want
the ocean. Get out of here.
Yeah, it was kind of like really took the wind out of our sails. You know what I mean? But we kept tracking it, and it was really fun. Like every day, they'd stand up a new phishing site, and we'd report the phishing site, trying to get it taken down. We implemented a filter in the chat system, so that they could no longer text these sites to people like through the app. We would block all URLs, and then we got really creative, and I released a book last year called Adversarial Tradecraft and Cybersecurity, and I actually talk about this exact technique in the book. And I wouldn't do this in normal operations. Like what I'm about to say is pretty crazy sounding, but when you have these long-term campaigns and somebody is like stealing some piece of data, and you can't really like stop them other way, like every day, like we would block these sites and they'd come back. You kind of have to start to get inside their thought process and like attack the way they're designing their campaign. So what we realized they were doing is they would clone the Uber login page every day, or the Uber homepage, and then they would basically run this copy of our site that was sent them all the answers and all the phishing. So what we did is we backdoored the JavaScript in the Uber login page, like the home page, and we said, if this JavaScript is getting loaded on something that isn't uber.com, I also want you to send all of the credentials that log in there to this endpoint. So they'd clone our website.
You hacked the hackers.
Oh, it was so good, dude. It was so good. We no longer would block their sites. We'd let them clone our sites, and then the victims would get phished. And what they would do is they would collect all these credentials, and then at the end of the day, they would have people manually log in and like cash these people out. Meanwhile, we had everything fully automated. So the moment our people logged into this foreign page and got phished, we applied 2FA to their accounts and sent them a password reset email. So now, like, we were inside their like decision loop. Like, like we hacked the hackers. So they would phish all these people, and the accounts would be instantly locked. And I'm sure they were just going mad, like, what is happening? Not only that, but we had all kinds of cool telemetry, because now they would like edit the web page locally on their laptop. So we'd get the IP that they were working from locally, and we'd get like file path names. So we'd have like usernames leading to the desktop where they're working on the web page. It was great.
Did some people get arrested?
Yeah, unfortunately. Like, obviously.
Obviously, yeah. Wow, okay, that is actually crazy, but that's a freaking cool story. I think that tops my best stories I've heard this, like, in the last 2 years of hacking the hackers. That's brilliant. Fuck, I love it.
Yeah.
It's blown away. It's like phishing the phishers and hacking the hackers, and oh my god, straight up. That's so cool.
It was a good one. And like I wouldn't recommend doing that to most people. Like, yeah, backdoor your app, like your website source
Absolutely
code. Like,
not. No.
it sounds crazy, but it worked.
Was it like localized at least? Was it just like to this particular area, or was it just like everywhere?
Yeah, it was everywhere, man. And
Everywhere. Oh my god.
it was funny too, because like, oh, they're
You
gonna
probably
see this
found
for
some
sure.
stuff that you probably found some stuff that like you didn't even mean to find out of that as well. I'm sure there was some more, findings out of this. Oh my, that's insane. I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you next, like, what's your best war story? But yeah, have you got anything better than that? That's crazy.
I have some good ones. We for the CCDC stuff, we write a lot of malware, but we can get into that in just a second. We did add some Easter eggs to this because like we thought for sure they would find it. We're like, oh, they're gonna look at the source code and they're gonna see all this JavaScript. So we like base64 encoded all of the logic, and it would like eval it and like deobfuscate it when it ran it. And then we also added an Easter egg in there where it was like it would evaluate this expression that was always true, but it was like, if you find this and you're a bug bounty hunter, like let us know. Like we added this whole Easter egg
trying to hire some people out of the
yeah
back of it.
It's pretty funny.
I mean, yeah, not bad. I mean, yeah, if they do find it, did anyone find it?
That was a different team that got the reports, the bug bounty reports.
Damn.
So I'm not sure if anybody's ever reported it, but yeah, it was pretty cool that we added that for a while. It was so janky too. Like it was really like this Rube Goldberg machine where it'd send this JavaScript request back to some random endpoint, and then that hooked into like some finance and fraud detection system inside of Uber.
Jesus. That's crazy, man. That's the best story. I'm gonna cut this whole section out and make this a separate video after this because that's awesome. Yeah, right. Okay, so back to my list of questions, which are now going to sound incredibly boring after that story. When you were getting started in cybersecurity, first question: did you study at uni, or did you just do certs, or go from another part of IT into cybersecurity? And then off the back of that, what was your favorite learning material that you had that you picked up along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So I went kind of the traditional route. I went through university. I went to East Stroudsburg University in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, between like Philadelphia and New York. And I studied, I got a dual major in computer science and information security. And it's actually a funny answer because like, I was like, yeah, I studied it traditionally, right? But my first 2 years of university were all computer science. And I like at one point I got like nervous or like bored or something, and I was like, they're not going to teach me cybersecurity. Like I'm wasting my time. So at that point, a bunch of my classmates and I started a club, which I think was really helpful. Just the computer science club, and in there we would do, on the first half of the week we would do like let's build and make something. So we'd like make a website, and then on the second half of the week we did security focused topics like let's hack this website we just made. So that was really fun, and I made a lot of great contacts through the club, and that was really helpful. But also after my first 2 years, and I was like, they're not going to teach me this stuff, and like I started getting nervous that I was actually going to learn useful cybersecurity here. I started just picking up books in the industry and reading books like pretty much every month. And the first book that I read that I think was like probably the best introduction to cybersecurity I could have ever gotten was the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, the WA. And if you've ever seen this thing, it is like a Bible. It is huge, hundreds of pages. But I thought it was great because like I had some computer science background, but I was a total like newbie in terms of like, what are even these like large concepts with cybersecurity? So I started learning like all kinds of web app attacks. And then from there too, like the WA is great at also just teaching theory. Like it constantly says wherever a user can put user input, like that's an attack vector. That's a place where your web application can be attacked. And that's true like across all of cybersecurity. If you look at any application or anything like that, like the more freedom that the user has where they can give you arbitrary input, that's a huge attack surface. If you're making like a localized application or a network application.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, very like foundational in my cybersecurity experience. Like and I read that book cover to cover. Like every week I would just like be reading this book, like teaching myself InfoSec.
And then the Bible of cybersecurity.
Exactly. And then of course, like, like every junior hacker, you get like this huge head about you, and you're like, yeah, I know hacking now. So like
Yeah.
then my third year, I go into these classes, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna test out. Like I don't need this crap. And my teacher was just like, this is insane. Like nobody's ever tested out. You're going to these classes.
Oh man, I did the exact same thing with the OSCP. I'd just done like some other stuff, some other certs, and I was like, and been working in some stuff, and I was like, I could do this easy. Didn't study for it, just went straight into the exam, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I was like, I'm an idiot. I remember
Dude, that
like
exam,
a minute starting, and I was just like, I'm stupid. I'm an idiot. I can't
that
believe I
exam
didn't
wrecked
study.
people.
Oh fuck! I gave it a good try. I didn't pass the first time, but obviously, but I passed the second time round, so that was good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the first time I was like, I'm absolutely retarded. I have no idea why I didn't study for this. Like, what's wrong with me?
Oh. That exam is exactly like that though. Like their whole motto is like try harder, and it's like you just come back to that material and you're like, what was I thinking the first time? Yeah, like I did the same thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, from what I've heard anyway, actually don't do too well. Well, they don't quite get there on the first one. I absolutely flunked it on the first time.
Yeah.
Like 100% fail. So, but yeah, it's a tough exam, and it's tough for a reason. I mean, it's probably the most industry recognized pen tester cert out there, but yeah. So
well,
okay,
that's a good point too. Like I think a lot of the certifications don't do anything like practical, and that's why that has so much weight. It's because like it is hard and it is kind of like hands-on, whereas like like the CISP, it doesn't give you any insight to the person's like actual technical skills.
Yeah, that's for sure. So in your geographical area, which I'm assuming is still the Bay Area?
I'm in like the Philadelphia area right now. I'm back on the East Coast.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay, well in that area then, what's the largest growth area of CyberSec jobs that you've seen recently? Like what's really booming at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say for this area specifically. So like my own career path, I was working at CrowdStrike, and then I took this break to write this book. I wrote the book, and then I was like really kind of uninterested. Well, that's not true. Like I was trying to do little startups, and I really wanted to like get back to work because like I think if you're working in the industry, you'll see generally like cooler and more interesting problems than if you're just doing like side research.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to get back into the industry and like see some really cool stuff. So I actually had a friend reach out with this position, and he's like, "Do you want to come work on my team?" So that's what I took. Like I shopped around for a few jobs, but like I really knew the people that I wanted to work with, and I just took this job as it was available. But I get like recruiters and like people hit me up every day with job offers, and a lot of it right now seems very like, at least to me, and I did put out the book, so I do get a lot of red team offers or people saying like, hey, lead this red team or come work on this red team. But the general like cold calling is a lot of SOC jobs or incident responder or even like IT admin jobs. And I think those are they're great jobs. Like I think there's a lot of experience things you can do there. Yeah. Although I will say
a job's a job, really. It's a means to make money, but if you enjoy the work you're doing, then who's to tell you otherwise, really?
Yeah, and that's what I would really highlight too, is like I feel like a good team makes all the difference. Like I've been on crappy 100%. Incident response jobs before, like consulting where I'm just doing the whole thing myself, and like that's been really boring. But I've also been on like even like SOC analyst jobs where like the other person in the SOC with me gets super hype over like an incident. They're like, yeah, we're gonna find this malware and find out where it's coming from, and like that makes all the difference. Like I love working in an incident where people are like hype, to like catch somebody.
Where the IR team had like one of those buttons that you press and it plays a sound, and it was the CSI Miami like thing where he puts on the glasses like constantly. Like I was like, shut up. Everyone was so sick of it after like a couple of months. We're all like, god damn, we need to get rid of this button. was
I
good.
think one of my favorite moments I've ever seen, like in terms of like IR reactions or like this thing, is I was on this red team once, and we were hacking this organization, and it was this huge effort. It was like multi-part. We had all these different scoped red team assessments, and we got to hang out like in the SOC room, the IR analyst room, for a bit. So I would like always go there just to see what they're up to. Like some of our fellow consultants were always in there, so I just like hanging out in there. And I don't know if they knew we were on the red team or not, but at one point, like this guy that worked for the company, not the consulting group that I was part of, he was this incident responder, and he was just like really pissed about like some techniques we were doing. I think we like owned this box, and then we uninstalled all of our stuff before they got to the machine. Um, and I just remember him being in this room, and he had glasses that were like magnetically sealed, like they connected in the middle via a magnet. And I remember him being so angry, he like ripped his glasses in half, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like,
Whoa, he's hulking out.
Like, yeah, we were doing some, like we are enraging people here. This is not okay.
Oh my god!
But it was like, just a normal thing he did, I guess.
You've worked in some interesting places, I have to say. All right. Tell us a bit about your book, man. I want to hear more about it. So like the blurb, I guess, of it, and where people can find it, of course.
Yeah, so adversarial tradecraft and cybersecurity, offense versus defense in real time. It's on Amazon, and it's sold by pack. So if you want to get it cheaper, you can also get like a pack subscription, I think, for $10, and then you get access to all of their content. So you could just go there, get it for $10, and like more books too. They have a lot of good books. So that's the little like where to get it. But the reason I wrote it, and there was a reason. Every chapter goes back and forth between like offensive techniques and then defensive techniques, how to detect these things, and then also, like I was saying, like how to get inside and like stop the attackers or really like frustrate them or thwart them. So I try to do that with all of the chapters, and I also take semi-novel approaches, things like we talked about, where you would like backdoor the JavaScript code, like pretty non-traditional stuff. And also very like offensive stuff. Like on the offense side, I talk a lot about like keyloggers and like collecting information on the people that you're attacking. But the reason that I wrote the book is for these CCDC competitions. Is every year I'm playing against these students, and these students, it's kind of like they may have institutional knowledge in their club or their university, where it's like, we've played this over the years, here's some run books, or here's some things the red team will do. But generally, from my experience, a lot of these students come in fresh, and you know, the only experience they have is within their 4 years competing, and then new students come in and they start over fresh again. And I was like, I gotta give these students something. Like, we're putting out blog posts, we do these little videos on like lessons learned, but I gotta give them something more material where they can actually like learn from these events and not just come in and get their asses kicked like every year, you know?
Schooled.
Dude, it's the national CCDC red team is crazy too. Like, we got people like Mubix on the team, Raphael Mudge, the creator of Cobalt Strike, this guy Script Junkie. Like, there's all kinds of yeah,
some big names in there, bloody hell.
Yeah, and they all bring like custom malware. Like, we all bring like crazy kits, and like these students, I mean, some of them do really well. Some of them kick us out, but like some of them, they just get like the floor mopped with them, and I feel really bad for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just like, how am I getting owed repeatedly? Yeah. So in the book, I really, at least everybody has unique techniques on the team, but I lay almost all of my techniques out. I say, you know, here's the C2 I'm using. Here's how I'll modify it. Here's some keyloggers I use. Here's rootkits I use. Here's how to detect them. So it's really like an expose on the techniques that I bring to that competition and how I would stop myself. And I've also played other competitions like Pros versus Joes, where you do both the attacking and the defending.
Those are the best ones. I find them the most educational to be, yeah, for me anyway. But yeah,
the defense is really hard. Like, there's a lot of pressure when you're on the defense, and like you never know where to like look, and you always feel like you're under the clock. Whereas doing the offense year over year, I've learned to like take my time, where I'm like, you know, let's say I find a web app, like I'll take my time and find a vulnerability in the web app, like even if it takes me an hour or 2 hours. because I'm like, in the long term, this is going to get me access and this is worth it. Where on the defense, you're like, I don't have time to patch that system. Just reset the creds and reboot the machine. It's like, no, that is the wrong decision. Like, take your time,
Oh,
like
God.
fix it before you bring it back online.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's good. That's yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. Onto like advice for people coming in. What one piece of advice would you give to anyone getting into cybersecurity? So if they're at uni or just thinking about it, they're in school maybe, and they're just thinking, oh, maybe cybersecurity is for me, maybe not. What advice would you give those people?
yeah, it can be really hard to break into the industry, I think. Like your first job's always hard to get.
It's true.
But after that, it's kind of like a windfall. Like once you get a little experience in cybersecurity, you become a hot commodity and people will keep hiring you. So I think if you're in that very initial bucket where you're like, hey, I've been learning the skills, I put 3 to 6 months of time in and I can't land these jobs. Like people say there's a job shortage, but where's my job kind of question. Um, I would say find a community or find a team, find a group that you can study with because you'll get motivation from those people as well. Like you'll start to feed on each other, and then who knows, like maybe you guys will start a small project together and that project will blow up and that'll give you content to go talk about or market yourself on. So I'm a big fan of that. Like find somebody you can vibe with and that you can do like little projects with, and definitely try and do hands-on projects because like studying and just learning every week is great, but if you get the practical experience like deving something, you're going to hit all those corner cases. You're going to hit errors that you have to work through, and that's really what you'll encounter in your job. And any kind of like debugging skills or like just practical like working on tools with other people, that's all relevant, I think, to the working world.
Yeah.
And
No,
and you can talk about that stuff during an interview. Like I interview a lot of people too, and I ask them those questions all the time. Like, just tell me about a school project you worked on with somebody. You know what I mean? Like that's very relevant.
Do you like look for that STAR methodology? So the situation, task, action, resolution, um, type thing of like a storyline type thing of their answer there, or is it just like free for all, like just say whatever you want type thing?
Yeah, I actually hadn't heard of that. I've never heard of the STAR methodology before, but that's really cool.
Yeah, it's
Um,
I know it's super common over here in recruitment, and I remember when I first started doing interviews for people trying to get into jobs, this recruiter, oh no, sorry, they were HR person. They're like, "Oh, read up on the STAR methodology because that's what we're really looking for the answer in, because it's easier for us to understand who, like the recruiter or the HR manager or whatever doesn't know anything about cybersecurity. So when they bring in a technical person to come in and ask the technical questions, they want them to have those an answer in that sort of flow. So
okay.
that's just here anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Have a look. STAR methodology.
Yeah,
Pretty
I'll
good.
definitely leverage
Yeah.
that. That was
Yeah.
cool. Most of the time when I ask that question, I want to ask people technical questions, but like everybody knows such a wide array of different stuff. So what I'll do is I'll just find their interest, like their niche, and then I'll dig into that. And then what I'm really looking for is like, do they have like debug skills, or like do they have like an analytical mind? Like, do they want to know why something's not working, and then what steps do they take to like take that apart and understand why it's not working? And
Yeah.
that's really where I'm going for with those questions, is like, you can tell me, you organized your prom homecoming or whatever, right? And like, I just want to
Yeah.
hear about the problems, and I want to hear about like how you took them apart and fixed them, and
That's interesting.
yeah,
That's actually pretty. That's a good one. I mean, because then you get a feel about the person as well as their problem-solving skills, which is that's kind of cool.
yeah.
For anyone in the chat at the moment, it's now question time. So if you guys have any questions that you would like for me to ask, go nuts. Throw them in the chat. I know there's only like 10 or 9 people watching this, so it's
Oh, that's
probably
cool though.
because not a huge amount like the ones I do on the weekends, but still good nonetheless. So here we go. One question in from Ninja. What's the best way to learn relevant skills if security classes at school isn't an option?
Yeah. So I just did Advent of Cyber, I think, on Try Hack Me, and I really
Yep.
like their platform. I think it's it's up in the air for some people, but like one of the things that I liked is just the ease of access to the labs, how they give you like the whole VMs in the web browser. That and obviously uh what is that one website that's really big with all the trial machines where you can go in and hack the box? That's a really popular one.
Yep.
It's kind of like the OSTP labs, but a lot of that hands-on experience, and that's those things are just like CTFs in my mind. Like they'll give you tons of experience, and the cool thing about those is they're on demand. You can just like do these challenges whenever.
Yep.
You get the subscription. You can read the write-ups. Like one thing that I'm kind of against is you definitely want to like bang your head against the wall for a little bit in terms of like struggling to figure out a challenge, but don't waste a whole day on something. Like you want that learning loop, which requires feedback. Like if there's something you don't understand, you got to read the write-up. You got to like learn it or learn the pieces you're missing.
Yeah, that's it. I usually, just to add on to that as well, I usually focus on, if you just want to learn the relevant skills, I would focus on networking. So like actual like computer networking, not networking with people networking. Some sort of systems administration type tasks, so learning how to build VMs or different cloud servers and different offerings that they have, how to run up an S3 bucket or anything like that. And the last one, probably something to do with cloud, I would look at as well, and maybe some Linux stuff. So you can learn some basic Linux commands of things like over the wire. Overthewire.org. It's a free website. It's basically a CTF where you connect up to an SSH session and you run the commands that it tells you to run, and that's basically it. You get the flag at the end. It's not quite as simple as that, but yeah, it gets harder and harder as it goes. But it teaches you all the basic stuff like cat ls. It starts basic and gets a bit more crazy down the line. But those are the things I would focus on first, is those fundamental knowledge parts, and just sort of go from there basically. Any other questions in the chat, drop them in, by the way, while we're talking.
I'll echo that really quick. Over the Wire is phenomenal. Like that's such a good series of challenges. And then even the three things you hit on, right? Like networking, basic Linux administration, and cloud. It's funny, like I'll like teach a lot of people, like just like me working directly with this other person for a few months and then try and get them a job. And one of the tasks that I always give these people, it's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi style. Like I got all these chores that I got to do, and I'm going to have them help me around the house. You know what I mean? But they'll learn while they do it. So one of the big chores I always have people do is like set up my C2 infrastructure for me. Because like I've done it. I should really just Terraform this stuff out at this point.
But
I'll get these people,
the students, to learn. So
yeah, exactly. So like, I'll have them just like set up C2 for me all over the place, and it hits on all those things, right? Like they have to test it. They have to make sure the agents connect back. There's no networking problems. It's usually in the cloud. There's a lot of Linux administration involved there. So it's funny that you brought up those things. Like they're all pretty fundamental things that are pretty important.
I like your example better though. It's kind of more fun. Get people to do the work for you.
Hey man, I got these fences that need to be painted.
Yeah, I got things to do, damn it. We got a question from San Antone Homie. Cool name. Obligatory every hacker question. Can you hack my bank account to add money to it? No. The answer. Although if you send some phishing scams to Uber, they might just help you out with that one. With some sweet backdoor action. Oh god.
Generally my advice there too is like stay legal. Like obviously you can make fast money doing crime, but as we've seen in some of these stories, like if you make fast money you can lose it. Yeah, you can lose it very quickly too.
Yeah, as well as your potential livelihood and career path.
Yeah,
so
just more fun.
Yeah,
more fun to be out of jail.
Absolutely. Right, there's no more question. Wait, no, one more just came in from TC. Question is, network admin or sysadmin before jumping into cyber? I was kind of both. So I did sysadmin and then I went to doing network admin and then network security engineer and then cybersecurity kind of by accident because that's what they needed. I don't have a better reason for
That's
you
awesome.
guys. But yeah, I mean, I'd either or. I would out of the two, maybe network admin. But yeah, I mean, it's much of a muchness. In a lot of jobs as well, in like smaller companies, the network admin and sysadmin is like, it's just one job. So you kind of do both anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Do
Yeah,
you want to add anything to that one, or?
I just think you're spot on. I think both are really powerful, and you'd be surprised how many skills they give you in cybersecurity. Like, and I would say almost, at least in terms of like pen testers and cybersecurity stuff, like network admin's almost a little rare. Like, I knew this guy Gene at Western Regional CCDC, and we'd always have these like Cisco devices, and he'd have like crazy like tickle script backdoors he could run on these network devices, and I've never really seen anybody else with that skill. Like, I know people are out there with those skill sets, like, but there's a lot of cool network attacks in cybersecurity. Routers are a great place to do operations. So, yeah, I think both of those are like, I think system admin is obviously a little more directly, like, you're going to be on a lot of Linux systems or Windows systems, and being able to like mass administer those is important. But I think both have a ton of relevant skills.
Absolutely, I agree. Someone's asked, what was a book recommended by you before? Was it the Web Application Hacker's Handbook? I believe it was, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
also, yeah, what's your book called again? I'll type it out into the chat.
Yeah, my book is Adversarial Tradecraft in Cybersecurity, Offense versus Defense in Real Time. And then the first book was the WA, the Web Application Hacker's Handbook.
Sweet. Okay, I'll
And
send a
WA, I think, is for any skill level. Like I said, that was the first book I read. But my book, Adversarial Tradecraft, it's more for like people that have started and like middle level people that are trying to like pick up new techniques. I think my book would be a little overwhelming for somebody just getting into the field.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just gonna throw a link to the Amazon store. Just found it quickly while I was talking there. That's a link to his book. If you guys want to check it out, it is, the paperback is 35 Australian, I think. I don't know how much it is on Kindle. I don't know what that is in US. Probably like $15 or $20. The exchange rate is really good. Our money is worthless. We're like Monopoly money here at the moment. Buy some merch, guys, please. I can't eat. Yeah, no, I'm joking. You don't have to buy much. Are there any other books that you would recommend for complete beginners? Other than
I read a lot of cybersecurity books, and one of the series that I've really enjoyed over the last few years is these books by this guy Sparkflow, like How to Hack Like a Porn Star, How to Hack Like a Ghost, they're called. They're funny names, but generally they're great books. Like each one is set like a story. Like, you're breaking into this company from like, let's say, their retail stores all the way into the corporation. And he starts with like these easy stories, and they're all focused like from a black hat perspective. Like, he's doing all this stuff illegally, like through Tor, which is kind of funny. But he also goes very much into the technical details. So it's like really cool hacks all the way through the book. And then like he takes you like soup to nuts. Like, you walk into this retail store, and then at the end you own the domain controller and everything in the network.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
And he's got a whole series of these, like all kinds of little adventures. Yeah, and each one's less than 100 pages. You can read it in a week. You know what I mean? They're not hard, and they're great books. Like, they have cool skills in them.
Sounds like cool stories as well, actually, which is, I think, half the battle with these sort of books is keeping people engaged. So that's awesome. That's a good recommendation. If you guys have any other questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm turning off the stream. It's gonna end here. So last chance for questions. I don't think there's going to be any more questions because it looks like a few people have dropped out. There must have been like a YouTube ad play or something. So people have just clicked off. But yeah, that's okay. Anyway, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And I'm definitely going to be taking that snippet and making a separate video out of that.
Oh,
just
cool.
because that was a great story. So I really like that one. And I'm definitely going to share that around later. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and no doubt I'll talk with you again soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really had a lot of fun.
No worries, man. I'll catch you later.
See you, man.